Okay, so I think we're getting ready to get going here. So for anyone who just got in the last few seconds, you'll want to make sure that you have something on hand to write with. Leanne's going to give lots of great advice and tips today, so I'd hate for you to miss something. You can also leave questions for Leon in the comment panel on your screen, and I promise you that we will do our best to get through everything later in the Q&A session. So before we get into digital marketing, I am going to give you a brief introduction into Intellitix, as well as our guest speaker for today, Leon Hill. So as I mentioned earlier, my name's Lindsay. I'm the content marketing manager for Intellitix. And just one second. So Intellitix is the leading global provider of technology-driven solutions for festivals and live events. Our RFID technology helps event organizers reduce costs, increase revenues, and enhance the guest event experience. We were honored as the best technology provider at the 2016 Event Production Awards in London, and we were also ranked by Fast Company as one of the world's top 10 most innovative companies in live events. Intellitix is passionate about improving the way organizers and their audiences experience live events. We bridge digital technology with real-life experiences. So our mission is to better connect promoters and their commercial partners with the ticket buyer. We're here to help you gain insights into your guests' actions, to give you a secure and non-invasive environment, all while boosting revenue opportunities, eliminating fraud, and providing heightened guest experiences. So if you have any questions about what we do, or you're interested in speaking with somebody from our company, I'll have our contact information listed at the end of the webinar. So let us talk about Leon now. So Leon Hill, in the festival industry, there's few people who have managed to keep in step with the dynamic and often elusive online marketing trends as Leon Hill and his company We Know Festivals. The Iceland-based Aussie founded the first social media marketing company in the world back in 2007, and since then he's worked with entertainment agencies like Warner Music and Paramount Pictures. Leon now works exclusively with festivals. He's worked on digital marketing campaigns for Secret Solstice, Lost Paradise, The Ark, Rampage, and many others. Leon's special talent is getting unrivaled mileage out of the marketing budgets while fine-tuning a festival's brand to maximize growth and longevity. As an example of his exceptional abilities, just last year, Leon's agency created the $1 million festival ticket campaign for Secret Solstice, which became the third most read event news story of 2016. So we'll get Leon to give you all the details about that a little bit later, but for now, let's say hello to Leon.
Hi guys, and thanks for the intro, Lindsay. Much appreciated.
Yes, of course. So is there anything else that our guests should know about you before we get started talking about digital marketing strategies?
Nothing really that comes off the top of my head. I mean, I guess it's been a long road to getting to where I am today. I've had the privilege of, as you said, I founded basically the first social marketing agency in the world back in 2007, and sold the first ad ever on Facebook, even before they had their own ad system. So I've, I guess, been doing that digital part longer than basically anyone in the world. That led me to work with some of the biggest companies on earth, Audi, the United States Marine Corps, and the governments of more than a dozen countries. And then eventually into the entertainment business, which is something that I love dearly. And today, almost exclusively festivals. I still do some consulting every now and again in other fields of the entertainment industry, but yeah, almost solely festivals these days.
Awesome. So you are going to be a great resource for our guests that we have here today. So before we jump into our first question, let us start by asking everybody a poll question. So this should appear on your screen. Just give us 1 second, launching the poll. So you should have a poll that popped up. So where do you see the most organic engagement? So you have a few seconds if you want to answer that for us. And then we will show you the answers once we have things closed. Okay, so I'm going to close the poll in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so it looks like our top runners here are Instagram and Facebook, of course. So no love for Twitter or YouTube. So let's get back into our webinar. So let's talk then about the basics. So which social platforms should festival marketers be using, Leon?
The short answer is as many as you possibly can. The thing is that I tend to find these days is that too many events are relying on just the simple basics, just relying on Facebook, Instagram, maybe Twitter, depending on the locale, posting up their lineup videos whenever they have them, things like that on YouTube, and kind of leaving it at that and expecting that things are just going to happen organically. The problem is that providing that you are creating great content, you can get a lot of organic reach, but there are so many platforms that are so underutilized, that events especially have such a scope to create amazing content on. The fundamental core of a festival is something that's there for people to have a blast and to have an amazing time. And from that point of view, it's so easy to create content around that in terms of whatever your festival is. However, going through some of the basics, there are some certain fundamental points that I usually like to stick by. Facebook, I consider these days as the main hub where I guess a lot of your key content should be situated. And for the most part, depending on your advertising budget, should be where you will spend most of your ad spend. And the main reason for that being cost. There is no platform out there really at the moment that one can reach so many people with a certain budget, but two can reach a vast amount of people at the lowest cost. When you compare Facebook to platforms like Google, Twitter, whatever, the cost per click from an advertising point of view anyway, is generally substantially lower on Facebook than it is anywhere else. And that's just the way that other social sites are geared. So I always think of Facebook as a hub, especially from an advertising point of view, where you're going to be spending most of your money, and everything else is kind of secondary. In saying that, there are a lot of platforms. I know this is leading into a little bit what we're going to say down the track, but I tend to find that a lot of these platforms are extremely underutilized. Just off the top of my head, Pinterest, Periscope, podcasting, and a few others, which we'll go into a bit of detail later. But events, I think, for the most part, are too stuck in this headspace of let's just stick with Facebook. Let's maybe do some remarketing on Google Ads. Let's have an Instagram and a Twitter profile for shits and giggles, and then let's leave it at that. And the fact is that there is so much out there, especially with sort of more emerging markets of a younger demographic who are starting to become festival ticket buyers these days, that event companies just simply aren't utilizing.
So you mentioned Pinterest. Does Pinterest have a specific audience? Is their audience going to be different from Facebook, and will that impact which festivals are going to want to utilize Pinterest?
Yes and no. So, Pinterest has an extremely wide user base over a very broad demographic, ages from 16 and over, which for the most part, depending on the region of the world, 16 is going to be the minimum age for a festival attendee. For especially the people that are going to buy tickets. Mainland Europe and things like that, it's always 16, but the rest of the world, it's generally 18 plus. Mm-hmm. So there are, even though Pinterest average age is slightly higher than, let's say, Instagram or Snapchat or something like that, there are still, especially as well as putting into consideration the age demographic you're trying to hit with your festival buyers, there are millions and millions of people in basically every age demographic that you're trying to hit on Pinterest. Having said that, Pinterest is all about beautiful imagery, which is what the site was built around. Obviously, it performs a little bit different than Instagram does, but they're both built around beautiful imagery. So providing you're selling your event in the right way, providing you're creating the right content around Pinterest in the right way, and providing you're advertising, a lot of people still don't know that Pinterest has an ad system like any of the other majors out there these days. Providing you're doing that all in the right way, then you can definitely get results. Going a little bit into advertising, I generally don't recommend sites like Pinterest should be used from an advertising point of view as a main source of initial traffic. So I generally leave Facebook as the source from an advertising point of view, as the place where you're trying to reach new customers. And that's simply down to cost. A Facebook video ad, the cost per 1,000 views is extremely lower compared to almost any other social site, maybe pulling aside Instagram, which is part of Facebook's own ad system. So I tend to think of all minor sites, especially sites that are quite underutilized like Pinterest, as a remarketing tool. So these are sites where you'll want to be re-engaging your audience from an advertising point of view that already know about your event, and maybe not an ideal point of view to try and reach a new audience via advertising. However, they are extremely good tools to try and reach a new market or a new group of people that have not yet heard about your event, just by basic social means, without spending money, by great content, discovery tools, and things like that.
Wonderful. So, kind of sticking with that, let's look at a few maybe more underutilized platforms. What about something like Reddit? Is that something that festival marketers can utilize?
Definitely. Reddit can be extremely powerful. For example, when we launched the $1 million festival ticket publicity stunt for Secret Solstice last year, I think we received 40,000 unique views from Reddit in a single day when we first launched it. So, of course, it was a big story, which Reddit is geared to. It was a great piece of content that Reddit's audience upvoted extremely highly and really responded to well. But in saying that as well, Reddit can also be a great place to syndicate content to. I recommend things like that festivals should be blogging at least once a week, creating content on the website for SEO discovery and things like that. And, it's Reddit is another free avenue that you can post links to your web content I'm not saying that every single piece that you post is going to generate 30,000 views in a day, but for the most part, this is stuff that these Reddit links will stay there permanently. Two, they'll generate SEO benefits. And three, providing that you're posting them in the right way on Reddit and the story, the content that you're posting is great, then there's no reason why you shouldn't receive a whole bunch of additional traffic from it. The other thing that festivals can also look into is creating their own subreddit as to create a community for people to discuss the event. This is something that I find that isn't happening very frequently. But for a festival, let's say, to keep all of their discussion on social media, sure, that's one cool thing. But creating your own festival subreddit where people, if people want to talk about the event, especially if the event's big enough that it's generating a lot of conversation online, there's no reason that you can't have a subreddit of your own, which again can generate a whole bunch of additional promotion as well as a whole bunch of communication online.
Yeah, it seems like it could really make the event more discoverable rather than sort of staying in that niche community, whether, you're talking to your Facebook fans, but, going outside of that and really opening yourselves up to a wider audience, which is great.
Yeah, from an advertising point of view, I think for the most part, though, Reddit will not really fit within something that I would recommend a lot of events doing.
Mhm.
I've personally used Reddit ads myself for We Know Festivals. We just have them listed sometimes on the reddit.com/r/festivals subreddit, which I find there are a lot of festival industry people on constantly. I tend to find that subreddit is more for industry people than it is for people that are actually going to festivals. But in saying that, it's not necessarily Reddit as a whole. Like I wouldn't be investing $1,000 on a campaign to generate traffic on Reddit unless the story that was behind your event was the right story. As with everything on Reddit, story is everything. And if you're just sort of posting a link ad on Reddit saying, here, come to our event, we've got whoever playing at it, I don't think it's going to generate a huge response. For the most part, if it looks like an ad on Reddit, people won't respond.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I love how you said that story is everything, because I think that's such a critical idea that needs to resonate with festival marketers. Is that you're telling a story, and that's really how you're going to generate interest and create conversions and really sort of push things to the next level. So moving on to the big question, which is what percentage of their advertising budget should they allocate to digital marketing?
That's a kind of how long is a piece of string kind of question. I've worked on events where close to 100% of the advertising budget is spent on digital.
Hmm.
And I've worked on events where only around 30% of the ad spend is on digital. It completely comes down to the local demographic, what people in your area respond to, how creative your physical marketing campaigns can be. And I think a lot of events let themselves down with physical when it comes to things like billboards, TV, radio, flyer drops, because they're not doing anything special. You can do, sure, you can do a billboard and just put a billboard up, with your festival lineup on it. Or you could put a billboard up that has a cheeky slogan, or that has something on it that is extremely vague, that gets people to click on a link that isn't fully described. I mean, the problem with physical that I find, or it's a problem with any kind of advertising that I find, is people just think that you can throw money at anything and it's just going to work.
Hmm.
But, good advertising is all about engaging the user, whether that's on digital, on a billboard, on a radio ad, or anything like that. So how festivals are spending their budget and how they're splitting it between digital and physical all comes down to how good that event is in engaging people through that medium. If you've had an amazing history with creating great radio ads that get an amazing response, keep doing that.
Hmm.
If you've got amazing response with only your digital and everything else is failing you, or you can't track the sales coming, then spend more money on digital.
Hmm.
So it's a really hard question to answer properly.
Yeah.
I'm big on the two things that I'm the biggest champion of are digital, mainly because of how easily you can track absolutely everything. I spend €1,000 on an advertising campaign, and I know exactly how many sales that's converted into via the use of tracking pixels.
Hmm.
And the other thing that I'm a big champion of is press and publicity, because you can literally spend a day writing up a press release and sending it out to the news, and you can get millions of dollars worth of advertising effectively for free. So they're by far my two favorite sources of advertising. But in saying that, if something is working for you, keep spending money on that. It's really as simple as that.
Yeah, if it's not broke, don't try and fix it, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, even if it's not broke, there's always something that you can do to enhance that kind of advertising.
Right.
Sure, if you've done something in the past that's consistently worked, keep doing that, but try and find ways to fine tune it. Try and find ways to track it better. Install some comedy or more of your festival's tone of voice, and anything extra that you can do to make any advertising engage a user more, the better.
Perfect. That's great. Okay, so let's just move on to another poll here. So our next question that we've got for our guests is, when do you start promoting your festival online? So I'm going to launch the poll now. You have a few different options here, and we'll just wait until we get some answers in. So 0 to 3 months prior, 4 to 6 months, 7 to 9 months, 10 to 11, or as soon as last year's event ends. So we'll give you maybe 5 or 6 more seconds. And I'm going to close it in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so let's take a look here. So 57% of you are starting at 7 to 9 months prior. 29% of you are starting at 0 to 3 months prior, and 14% of you are starting at 4 to 6 months prior. So we've got quite a range here. So let's talk to Leon and let's find out. So when is the most appropriate time for festival marketers to start running their campaigns?
As soon as humanly possible.
Okay.
I'm one of the things when I first started working on events in Belgium, which is about 3 years ago, and Belgium is probably the Belgians do festivals probably better than any other nation in the world. For a country of 11 million people, they do 270 festivals in summer every year. Events like Tomorrowland are a perfect precursor of what Belgians can do well. The big problem that I had with most of my clients in Belgium is that they'd always been doing things the exact same way. And with so many festivals there, it's so hard to try and change their view. And what they were doing every year is waiting until they had a full lineup usually, announcing it 3 to 4 months before the event, and going on sale at the same time. And that worked for years, mainly because of less competition was the big one. And two, people were at that time conditioned to really only want to go to one type of event, which was sort of bigger stadium events, not very little production, but no real concept. It was just jamming as many people, big names as you could into a stadium, and that was about it. Times change, and especially these days, as I'm sure that anyone listening can attest to, uh, there is so much more competition in the industry today than there was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It seems like every 5 minutes, a new little boutique festival is popping up. Some new warehouse concept is happening. There is just so much more competition in the industry these days that I'm of the view that the sooner you can start promoting next year's event, the better. You can do that in a myriad of ways that don't necessarily have to result on spending a whole lot of money. So, for example, one of the most engaging times on social media that any event owner can attest to are the weeks leading up to your event, and then sort of the week or two after the event. And that's obviously everyone's getting the hype on social media before the event, asking a lot of questions. And then after the event's done, there's a whole bunch of engagement. People are asking for after movies. People are asking for lost and found. People are asking for photo albums. People are constantly on social media after the event, looking at stuff for the event that's just happened, asking questions and things like that. That to me is the perfect time to announce dates for the next year if you can. That's always not a viable option, mainly because some festivals have licensing issues. You can't necessarily announce next year's event straight away. But if you can announce the dates of your next year's event, or the next event if it's 3 or 4 months away, the week after the event is done, I recommend doing it, mainly because of social engagement and how high it is during the week after the event. By the same token, that should also be a perfect time to put tickets on sale for the next event. What I always recommend is having a small number of super early bird tickets, whatever you want to call them, that go on sale almost immediately after your event is finished. That helps two things. One, it helps with the initial promo. You've got a group of people that already have tickets, that are already hyped up for the next event, that are already going to be talking about it on social media. The second thing is it helps to build that snowball effect. We all know in the industry, the more tickets that you sell further in advance of the event, the more likely you are to sell more in the end. And that just simply comes down to, there are more people with tickets, there are more people dragging their friends to the event, there are more people saying, come with me, we're going to party, whatever. The sooner you can start building that snowball and utilizing the hype of your previous event, the better. Now, the big problem that I always hear from event owners is, well, we don't have a lineup, or we don't have anything to talk about. And the simplest answer to that is, I think that's bullshit. You should always have something to talk about. I mean, we work in one of the most creative industries in the world. And if you can't find something to talk about your event, if you can't find a concept to discuss, if you can't find a fun avenue to get people hyped up about your next event, to put out content, whether it's photo albums from previous years, short 10 to 15 second hype clips of your event, blog posts discussing what the last year's event was like, post-event interviews with artists describing what their time was like at the event, interviews with attendees talking about how much fun they had at the event, posting key reviews of your event and things like that. There is always something to post. The problem is that most event owners go, well, we've got no photos and videos left, so we're done. And you're not done. Content is the number one most important thing in selling your event. And anyone, I think, that says the lineup is the most important is delusional. And I honestly think that comes from the fact that, and this is quite a bold claim, and I don't want to say it the wrong way, but people don't go to events for the same reasons they used to. And it's the trends that I'm especially seeing in Europe, is that people used to, all you needed to be able to do was book as many big names as you could, stick them in a stadium with hardly any production, and people would buy tickets. People don't want that anymore. People want an experience. They want to be excited. They want to be engaged at an event. And that's why these smaller boutique events are having so much success, because what I tend to find, smaller boutique events that pop up, they have a very, specific core concept, whereas bigger, more long-standing events tend to be just about growing more people, bigger acts and things like that. And it doesn't work anymore. And I think the reason it doesn't work anymore is because we live in a very shallow age. Everyone is all about what they can put on their Instagram feed to make their friends jealous on Monday morning, to show off about how cool the event was that they went to. And I mean, look at the Instagram feeds of any event, or at attendees of any event. People aren't really posting photos so much of, the artists. And I'm not saying they're not posting photos of artists, but they're posting selfies of themselves in front of amazing pieces of production. They're posting photos of themselves eating, unique and interesting food. They're posting photos of themselves with artists or installations and things like that that are around the event. And I think that's what smaller boutique events do so much better than bigger festivals. And I think that's one thing that events need to really sort of draw on more, both for a really good structured marketing campaign, as well as utilizing that story that they can announce their festival earlier. And this all goes back to, I know this is a really long-winded way of saying, how soon you can announce, but providing that you're coming up with cool concepts and things for people to do on your festival site and creating amazing content, then you can have a campaign that lasts a year. And I think more and more festivals, I'm not saying that every festival should have a campaign that lasts a year, but I'm always big on add more time to your event. If you can come up with more advertising content, especially for social media where you don't necessarily need to spend money, and if you're creating good content, then your content should do a lot of the work for you, then there's no reason to say that your event marketing campaign can't be twice as long as you've previously done it before. And it also means that you can run an event marketing campaign without a lineup.
Awesome.
Of
Yeah,
course,
that's
there'll be a lineup at some point, but I sometimes run marketing campaigns for events for 3, 4, 5 months before a lineup's announced. So there's always a way of doing it.
so it's start early and really build out that story of the experience and kind of, sell the experience to those attendees.
Yeah, create good content.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we actually interviewed you for a blog post on the Intellitix Knowledge Hub, and at one point that you really tried to drive home to the readers was that ad testing is critical. Can you take us through your strategy for ad testing?
Sure. So, I mean, I tend to find a lot, the two big things going back to what I mentioned before that I generally get hired for my clients is one, digital, and two is press and publicity, or coming up with a general marketing concept for an event. And I always find when it comes to digital that 90% of the time with clients almost do no ad testing whatsoever. They, sure that they'll, refine possibly their digital campaigns as the campaign is going along, but they won't pre-test any ad creative or anything like that. And I think that's a huge mistake, mainly because you don't have any starting data to really get a feel of how to start that campaign properly. In some cases, I will test, 1,500 images. So 1,500 images is probably the biggest testing campaign I ever ran for an event. And every image was tested in an ad where everything in that piece of ad creative was exactly the same, but the one defining factor between the ads was the imagery. And of course, not a lot of money was spent on each image. It was a huge campaign. It was a campaign of over $200,000. So we could spend quite a lot of money on testing, but we spent a few dollars on each image. But what happens when you do that, when you run a massive large scale test of that? We obviously drew on content they had from previous years and thousands of photos that they had from photographers over the last 4 or 5 events. But what we got from that is we found what their audience responded to in terms of ad imagery extremely well from the start. And what that allowed us to do was it allowed us from the very get-go of the main campaign, when we put tickets on sale, we knew what images to use straight away when we were starting to spend 10 to 15,000 euros a month. We estimate that by spending a couple of thousand euros on testing at the start and testing ad imagery, it saved probably somewhere in the realm of 20 to 30,000 euros in the end, because of how much we lowered the ad click-through rate right at the start of the campaign. Now, I'm not saying for every festival marketing campaign, not every festival digital campaign is going to be $200,000, but not every test market has to be testing 1,500 images at the start. You can scale that down for your event. If you've got only $10,000 or euros to spend on your event, spend a few hundred at the start testing maybe a few dozen of your best images or 50 of your best images to see what your audience responds to. I've been doing digital advertising for over a decade now, and there are certain things that I know people are going to respond to well when it comes to images. I can go through 100 photos and I can almost off the top of my head pick the 10 best that I know are going to perform the best. But when it comes to but that's sort of a general rule of thumb. There I'm still surprised sometimes what people respond to, and especially when it's a different events audience. Not every audience will respond to the same stuff, and that's why I think testing is absolutely critical, not only to save money, but really to get a feel for what your audience, the people who you want to pull their credit card out of their pocket and buy a ticket to your event. What do they want? What do they respond to the best? And if you can figure that out at the start of the campaign or even before you launch your campaign, then it's only going to be beneficial and hopefully in the end sell you a whole lot more tickets.
So what I'm gathering from all of this is that images are really going to be the most critical part of the ad. That's the most important part in terms of testing. I mean, you can test the ad copy and those types of things, but it's really the images are central.
That's correct. I mean, when you're talking about just purely, if we think it from a social media timeline, the image is the absolute number one most important thing that is going to initially draw someone's eye. You look at it at the point of view. I mean, we all use social media. We all waste hours of our or years of our lives scrolling through a Facebook feed. I mean, the first thing that always makes you look at a post and stops you scrolling is always the image. It's always the thing that first draws your eye. And then at that point, you're going to go and check out the rest of the information on it, the headline, the title, whatever. And if it's of an interest, to click. But the first thing that our brains are hardwired to look at is the image, not the text.
Right.
So if your imagery in your ads suck, then your ad campaigns are going to suck. That's as plain and simply as I can put it. There is no one key deciding factor that's more important in ad campaigns. And if you've got grainy, crappy, low res, unsaturated, non-bright, crappy-looking photos, your ad campaigns are screwed from the start. Another thing that it's festival owners are really getting better and better at is making sure they have great, high-quality photographers on site to really capture the vibe of the event. Which is amazing, because when you think about it, that what you spend money on photographers or videographers, well, I mean, you don't necessarily have to. There's always a way to get good photographers and videographers, to do it on, drinks and, tickets for their friends, if you're really bootstrapped. But when you think about spending money on a good photo and video team, you've got to think that's an investment for next year. It's not just to get people to engage with your social media after the event, or that helps, and to show them an after movie or, some albums of photos. That is your next year's marketing. And if that content is bad, then you're really shooting yourself in your foot for the entire next year of your campaign.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, that investing in photography and video is critical. And it's something that they have to, plan ahead for. They need to know that, their next year's marketing is going to rely on this. So I think that's a great point.
And I mean, I think that just if I can just sort of reiterate on that a little bit, I think what gets a lot of festival owners scared off to a certain extent is, really good photo and video work these days is getting ridiculously expensive. And good photographers and videographers, they know, once they're getting good, they start charging a whole hell of a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
In most of the events that I work on, I've always, especially from an international point of view, whether it's Secret Solstice in Iceland or Oasis in Morocco or Tomorrowland or whatever, I've always been able to pitch to photographers from abroad and say, look, we'll give you a free holiday. We'll give you flights, we'll give you accommodation, we'll give you all the food and drinks you want, we'll give you tickets for friends, come on a holiday and just shoot for us.
Yeah.
And I almost never get a no out of that. So, I mean, there's always a way to bootstrap, regardless of it. It doesn't matter the country that you're in. There's always a photographer or a really great piece of talent out there that's never been to your country and that would happily go to your event without being paid, as long as they were basically given a holiday for it, flights and accommodation and, get them drunk or whatever. So, there's always a way to get amazing content from that point of view without necessarily having to pay, 5,000, 10,000 euros for a photography team or an after movie crew.
I love that. I think that's a really great point for some of our marketers who might have a smaller budget. So now that we've talked about the basics of ad testing, can you tell us a little bit about tracking the results and the importance of actually doing that?
Yeah, totally. This is another thing that really surprises me, especially with how saturated the digital sphere is getting, is how few festivals are still tracking their customer data. And from that point of view, I mean, installing Facebook tracking pixels on the website to remarket to visitors, installing conversion codes on your ticketing system so you know what ad campaigns are converting into sales, having Google Tag Manager installed, having Twitter's ad tracking pixels installed on your site. I mean, the thing is that, getting someone to your website is always the hardest part. That's the biggest battle, is to get a new customer or get someone first interested to your website. And for the people that don't know what remarketing is, it's because I know there are still a lot of people in the industry out there. It's basically, let's use Facebook for an example. You can install a tracking code on all the pages of your website that allows you to track where your visitors are going. So you run a Facebook advertising campaign, you're then able to see exactly the pages that people are getting sent to from Facebook. It allows you to re-advertise to people that have been to your website, and only those people that have been to your website. These are people that have shown a massive amount of interest in you already. And that's generally where I find the ticket sales come. It allows you to install tracking pixels on the back end of a ticketing system like Intellitix, which allows you to exactly see how many tickets and at what price you're converting based on how much money you're spending. So you can exclude ad campaigns and things like that. So, I mean, there are a lot of people, and it's still to this day, I see, I start working with a new event and I'm just like, okay, so, what kind of tracking are you doing? And they say, oh, we've got Google Analytics installed. And I'm like, that's it. Basically every single ad serving platform out there, whether it's Facebook, Google, Twitter, whatever, they all have tracking codes that can be installed in your website to track anyone that's going to your site, to re-advertise to these people, which is generally where you'll generate tickets at the lowest cost, as well as to just get really good insight and data on your customers and the people that are buying from you, and reevaluate every single part of your marketing strategy. And that's whether it's remarketing or just providing better content. Without these kind of tracking codes installed, you have no idea whether you're, for every $1,000 that you spend, which are the highest performing pieces of content that are going from ads. Sure, if you've got Google Analytics installed, you can, of course, see which are the most visited pages on your website, but if you don't have Facebook's tracking codes installed, you've got no idea which ad campaigns are generating the highest amount of traffic to which certain pieces of content. So you don't really know which pieces of content you should be producing more of and cutting out the boring stuff that people aren't responding to. So it all comes down to, saving money or wasting money. If you're not tracking all of your data, you are basically throwing money out of the window. One, from a remarketing point of view, and two, from the point of view that you aren't aware of how well any of your ad campaigns are performing.
Yeah, that's really important. So you just touched on this a little bit, but can you tell us a bit more about remarketing and how it fits into this social media marketing strategy?
Yeah, so I mean, remarketing is where you'll tend to find the vast majority of your ticket sales will come from an advertising campaign. So, of course, the most difficult part is, reaching a new audience that may not know about your event yet, or hasn't heard about you in a couple of years. And that's where you do sort of, your main blasts on Facebook, promoting videos or photo content or whatever. But remarketing is re-advertising to all of the people that you have on other channels to access. So there are many channels that you can use for remarketing. So one, site visitors, and I touched on this a little bit. So for example, using a Facebook tracking pixel, you can re-advertise on Facebook to anyone who's ever visited your site in the last 180 days. You can do the same thing with Google, with remarketing on Google, showing banner ads to anyone who's ever visited your website. You can do the same thing with Twitter. So, re-advertising through any platform. I mean, you can do it with remarketing on YouTube. Any advertising serving platform, you're able to remarket to site visitors. Another thing that's quite underutilized that I find these days is remarketing to your mailing lists. Now, any good event should have a mailing list where people are requesting information from, or whether you're uploading your ticket buyers' email addresses into a platform like MailChimp, so you can send out a mailer to them once a week. But a lot of people don't realize that you can upload those email addresses into your ad platforms and advertise just to those people. So let's say your event has an email database of 15,000 people. You can upload all of those names into Facebook's ad system as a custom audience and run marketing campaigns just to those people. So what Facebook will try and do is it will try and match every email address to someone's profile on Facebook, whether it's been an email they've used in the past or an email they're currently using now to log into Facebook, and you can direct campaigns just to those people. I tend to find that they're some of the highest converting audiences are your email lists, because with festivals, the email addresses that you have on record are either A, ticket buyers, people that have bought in previous years or this year, or B, people have signed up to your mailing list, which are extremely warm leads. So running campaigns specifically, especially conversion-based campaigns specifically to these people, will generally generate a substantial amount more ticket sales per cost than it will to, let's say, just your fan base, your fans on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that you can do is generate remarketing lists based on lookalike audiences, which is something that Facebook or affinity audiences that are on Google. So what Facebook will try and do is it will try and create an audience that is very similar to the people that you have on your page. So you can find people that are interested in extremely similar things to your event, or that Facebook sees that are extremely close to the people that are already on your fan page, and customize an audience just to them.
Right.
The last thing that you can do, which is another thing that Facebook's implemented recently, which is extremely powerful, is creating custom audiences in the ad manager based on people who have ever engaged with your content before. So you can create custom audience lists based on people who have viewed any of your videos in the past, people who have engaged with any of your pieces of content in the past, and target ads just at those people. So of course, from a festival point of view, these are extremely valuable people. So anyone that's watched one of your videos in the past, whether it's been from a new ad campaign or on your Facebook page, they've shown some interest in your event. Anyone that's ever liked or commented on any of your posts, they're obviously extremely interested in your event. So, you know, they're way more valuable than just trying to reach a new audience. I know a lot of this kind of stuff may sound, if any of you listening haven't had a really in-depth history about remarketing or re-advertising, some of the terms that I've just used may sound kind of like gibberish. So, you know, after this, feel free to get in touch. You know, I'll be putting my contact details in, you know, and, you know, I'd be happy to help you out with some of the technical stuff. But remarketing is definitely the most powerful thing that your event should be doing in terms of you know, a well-structured ad campaign.
Yeah, and it seems like Facebook really has some neat tools for all of this to do the targeting and the retargeting. So, yeah, we'll put Leon's information up at the end of the webinar, so anybody can you know, write down his email address, grab his phone number, and then get in touch with him if they want to talk more about this. So one thing that I'm quite curious about is how festivals can really differentiate themselves on social media. So, what type of content really drives interest and prompts conversions? Is it pictures? Is it video? Is it, you know, what is it?
I mean, humans are very visual creatures.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so, you know, for the most part, any imagery or video content, providing it's the right content, will generally sell better than text-based content, for the most part. But it has to be the right type of content. When it comes to spending money on any content and how you can differentiate yourself, I mean, a lot of festivals I find are still using primarily image-based ads in their campaigns, and for the most part, just from a cost point of view, where possible, you should be trying to convert them into video. It's not to say that you have to, you know, have a huge production budget or anything like that. You know, you can use simple GIF-based motion imagery, which you can convert into a movie file or something like that. Just on a cost aspect, Facebook and a whole bunch of other ad platforms actually give benefits to video content, and in the long run, it's cheaper to reach, usually, again, providing the content is right, to reach a vaster number of people with video content than it is with photo, simply being that we respond better, or we've been conditioned to respond better on social media to video content than we have to photo or text content. Budgets can, I know, get tight, and it can sometimes cost a lot more to produce that video content. But again, as I've mentioned just before, you know, you can bootstrap these things to create, you know, short video content, like a 10-second clip of some raw footage that you have from the previous year, just with your logo superimposed on it. You know, that can replace a photo. And all the text and all that kind of stuff can remain the same, but replacing that stuff with a photo, replacing any photo content that you have with video and then running your ad campaigns based on that will generally allow you to reach more people for the same amount of money than it will with simple photo content. How you can differentiate yourself from other events, it all comes down to how long you can engage someone in the timeline. How you do that will depend on your event. Comedy and humor always works well. Again, it will depend on how you can relate that to your event, and what your audience is like, but there's always a way to be tongue-in-cheek with a good piece of content, make people laugh, make a joke out of your event to a certain extent without, sort of downplaying yourself. I mean, the first year that we ran Secret Solstice, I mean, we had so little budget that everything was sort of done from the point of view of some party Viking, trying to sell, foreigners to come to Iceland, and it worked quite well. But anything that you can do to sort of make yourself stand out without necessarily having to spend a whole lot of money on it. I mean, if you have a $50,000 budget to spend on video for your event, then sure, come up with some tongue-in-cheek infomercial that's selling your event like a bottle of cleaning wipe or something. There's if you've got a bigger budget, of course, it's a lot easier, but humor and creativity costs nothing.
Yeah.
So if you can do these things without spending any money, I'm all for it. The less money, again, going back to how saturated the event industry is, the more that you can do with a little amount of money, I'm all for it.
That's great. So you just mentioned Secret Solstice, and at the intro we were talking about the $1 million festival ticket. So I was wondering if you could, we're getting close to kind of cutting on our time, but I was hoping that you could tell people about the $1 million festival ticket and maybe give them some tips or advice on how they could replicate this type of publicity stunt, if possible.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a way to draw people's eye with a publicity stunt. I mean, probably the first big publicity stunt that ever got me a lot of attention is before Twitter had its own ad platform. I offered Twitter $500,000 to serve the first ad on their platform. Of course, they declined, but it got me a whole lot of press. This was back when I was working in the corporate sector. Again, that story cost me nothing. I knew Twitter wasn't going to say yes to me spending $500,000 on their platform. I didn't have $500,000 to give them to them if they said yes, but that didn't stop me creating a story that I knew the media was going to write about. And that was basically the mentality that I used when we came up with this festival ticket campaign. So in 2015, I came up with the idea to basically do the most expensive festival ticket, and luckily the festival owners said yes. And at that point, we came up with an amazing package that was worth about $200,000. So we launched it. It worked. It got amazing publicity. And then in the year between 2015 and 2016, we were copied by two other festivals that went slightly bigger. And me not wanting to be outshone by anyone, I just thought, how can we do this bigger without sort of just making it look like we're just trying to take a step up? And I thought, the first 7-figure festival ticket, no one's ever done that. I mean, it was a blatant publicity stunt. Of course, the package that we created was worth, I think in total, $780,000, what we came up with, including a private jet from anywhere in the world. So it was extremely valuable, but I didn't do it for that point of view to sell it. I did it for the point of view of I knew that we would get an insane amount of press from it. I mean, the media tends to jump on anything that's extremely high cost, especially when it's the first time it's ever been done. And that was the mentality I used. How you can use that mentality in other areas of your festival. I'm not saying you have to go out there and do a $2 million festival ticket campaign, but I came up with a lot of concepts for Secret Solstice that had never been done before, that also generated us an insane amount of publicity. So last year I had the idea of doing the world's first concert inside a volcano, basically in a dormant volcano that last erupted 4,000 years ago in Iceland. And we had the lead singer of Deftones, Chino, do an acoustic show in there. I knew that the media would eat that up, basically because it was the first time ever a concert had been done inside a volcano underground. So that was something. We used the Icelandic landscape to come up with a great story. 2 years before that, we did the world's first concert ever inside a glacier, again using the Icelandic landscape. So we've always done things that were either world firsts or that were so outlandish we knew they would get an insane amount of press. So what I would recommend is looking at things that you have to utilize for your event that you can turn into something special. I mean, do you have an old fort or an old structure or something that's historical on your event site? do a party inside that? Can you invite a celebrity to be the caretaker of your event for a year and send that out to press? They might say no, but if you can turn it into a hilarious story, someone will write about it. Think, if I was a journalist and this press release reached my desk, would I want to write about it, even though it may seem slightly tongue-in-cheek, hilarious, or like a joke? If the answer is yes, do it. Publicity press is free advertising. It's literally a sheet of paper that you can write in Microsoft Word. It costs nothing. The story is everything. So just utilize what your event has. Utilize the unique selling points that your event can draw on and create a story around that.
That's great. So we are getting close to running out of time, but I have one more question for you before we get into the Q&A. So if everybody wants to prep any questions that they might have, you can type those into the comment box and we'll get to those in a minute. Before we do that, I wanted to talk a little bit about influencer marketing. So can you maybe talk a little bit about influencer marketing and whether you think that this strategy should be used with digital marketing? Is it something that's viable and it's going to, really build out their campaigns?
Definitely, yes. I mean, of course, we all know about what happened with Fire Festival recently. Their entire marketing strategy was basically to pay as many influencers as they possibly could to promote the event. I think at last count, they had about 400 people, some of which they'd paid up to $250,000 to promote the festival.
Wow.
Sure, it worked for them, and
Yeah.
they sold out months in advance of the event with extremely high tickets on a first-year event, which is, what everyone's asking for.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, of course, what let them down was everything else was a complete bag of shit.
Yeah.
So influencer marketing obviously works. How I think Fire Festival did it wrong is, one, they just got anyone and everyone. They didn't really target a certain demographic, but then again, their festival wasn't really targeting a certain demographic apart from people that had too much money and faith to spend in a first-year event that was going to end up being a piece of crap. But two, obviously, every event doesn't have millions of dollars to spend on influencers. What you can do is, obviously, you've got to look at your target demographic and which influencers are more relevant to them to approach. Influencers these days, they cost money. I mean, my girlfriend is an influencer. She's got hundreds of thousands of followers on social media. She gets paid jobs all the time, gets flown around the world to just be herself. But that's because there is value in that. There is value from the point of view of an influencer's audience are extremely responsive to anything that they're talking about or anything that they're trying to sell or anything they want to be involved in. So when an influencer asks for money, most of the time they are worth that money. The problem is that I find a lot of events will just throw money at anyone who has a large following, and that's not always the right way of doing things. It should come down to the people that are the best fit for who you're trying to reach and sell tickets to. And the second thing is that, going back to what I mentioned before about photo and video teams, an influencer doesn't necessarily have to cost you money. I have had many influencers fly to many events based on, again, a holiday, flights and accommodation, which is something you're going to have to provide anyway. So if you can convince an influencer to come based on a holiday, especially if you can make the offer special enough, or flying their boyfriend or girlfriend with them as well, which may cost a whole lot less than paying their fee, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, that's a great strategy. Okay, that is it for our questions, or for the sort of main portion. We're going to go into the Q&A now. We received a couple questions. We've only got a little bit of time left, so we'll see how much we can get through here. So the first question that we received was, do you think offering discounts or using things like Groupon hurts the event? Do they tend to spend less on site? So they being those attendees.
That depends on the situation that the event is in. At the end of the day, a festival, when a date is set, unless, worse comes to worse, once you've set that date, you have to honor it. So, we're all coming down to deadlines, and it comes at a point in some festival marketing campaigns where you just absolutely have to sell more tickets and get more people through the door to make sure that you're breaking even or making enough money that year. And in situations where you're scrambling to sell tickets, I'm a big believer in any way that you can sell those tickets so you don't either A, lose money, or B, make less than you, or much considerably less than you're expecting to, then, we're in the business of selling. So I'm all for it. The only thing that I would suggest to that is that I would never post an offer like, let's say you've been selling full price tickets for 2 months, and then suddenly you go, well, we're for the next 3 weeks, we're discounting all tickets by 30%. That's going to piss a whole lot of people off who have bought tickets at full price.
Mm.
How I would recommend doing that is creating a special offer via one of the festival sponsors. So let's say Coca-Cola is your sponsor. Coca-Cola posts an offer saying, we're proud to be a partner of whatever festival. For a limited time only, we're offering everyone tickets at X off. What you can then do is then promote that offer.
Oh,
So
yeah.
sure, it's still coming from you, but you're not making it look like that you're, one, desperate to sell tickets, and two, you're also not annoying the people that have already bought tickets. You're not saying we're suddenly discounting, and if anyone starts chatting on social media about it, you just say this is a special offer from one of our partners. It is what it is. And that's a tactic that I've utilized in a lot of festival campaigns. The other side of things is, yeah, as you've mentioned, using Groupon and stuff like that, which definitely can work. I also, as opposed to just doing discounts on tickets, it can be a good idea to do things like, offering an upsell, additional merchandise, priority access, adding something extra as opposed to doing a discount, which I think can help stimulate sales. But sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes, doing a discount is the only way you can sell more tickets. And yeah, I'm a big believer in, if it comes down to that, then do that however you can.
Oh, that's great. So it looks like we're getting close to being out of time. There's a couple questions we didn't have time to answer. So what I'll do is I will put those individuals in touch with you directly, and you can answer those questions on a one-on-one basis.
Perfect.
Yes, that will just kind of save us some time. So in terms of you, we've got your information listed up here on the screen, email, website, and your phone number, so that people can get in touch with you directly. We're really, really excited that we were able to do this webinar today. I hope it was interesting and insightful, and gave some key takeaways for all of our guests so that they can implement those into their digital marketing strategies. Leon, why don't you just tell them, while they're writing down your information, where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, so basically everything is at We Know Festivals.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I'm more than happy for people to contact me directly. And just, yeah, for anyone's information, the number is +354 is the country code. It's Iceland. It's not like the area code of the United States of Canada. Don't add a +1 to that start of it. So that is basically the full number.
Okay.
But email is easier. It's just leon@weknowfestivals.com, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. That's great. Thanks so much. And also, if anyone would like to get in touch with Intellitix to discuss our access control, cashless payments, or experiential opportunities, you can contact us at info@intellitix.com. You can also reach out to me directly. We will also be sending you a follow-up survey to get your thoughts on the webinar, and we'd really appreciate your feedback on that. It'll really help us refine what we're doing and bring you more amazing webinars in the future. So I wanted to thank everybody for attending, and most of all, thank you so much, Leon, for giving us so much great information. I'm sure that everybody here is really thankful that they were able to attend, and that they got a lot of great, great information out of this.
My pleasure. Happy to help.
Yeah, great. Okay, talk to you later.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.